one of the biggest hindrances to consistency and progress is rigid thinking.
Yeah.
I have this carb allowance per day, no matter how I'm feeling, no matter what the season is. Those kinds of rigid thinking, they really kill consistency. Not taking into account any of the actual things, the conditions that are present in your life is just a recipe for disaster.
Hi, guys, and welcome back to the Thick Thighs Save Lives podcast. I'm Kelsey.
And I'm Rachel. And this, you know what? You showed up on a great day because you are going to get the realness today. If you showed up to listen today, you are getting the realness.
You're getting the realness.
You're welcome. If it was really real, I would say you're welcome. Can we bleep that? Let's bleep that.
It's perfect.
It's the realness.
Yeah.
What do you want me to say?
I feel like over the internet, there's a big movement of like, show us the realness. And then you're like, nah, that's just regular. It's just regular old everyday problems. And no one wants to hear about them. But
we're both having an existential crisis.
Yeah.
Because, some days you just don't want to be in camera. And I said this to you that, I have realized this through other people that I follow that create regular podcast content. Not like I record once a month and I really, make sure everything.
And my hair and makeup team shows up for that
Okay.
once a month.
I'm talking
about wedding dues.
Exactly. I'm talking about people that regularly record content, week after week, our 200 something episodes in, and they're just keep showing up. Here's the thing about them. You aren't going to get camera ready every time. Okay. It's just a no. It's a no. One of my favorite podcast hosts, she showed up to her podcast the other day, just fresh out the shower. Her hair was just slicked back and completely wet. And she was like, this is what it is. So are you here for me or no?
Are you here for me or no? Are we still buds or no? Here's the thing though, I feel like with a podcast, it's just a different kind of intellectually you have to be ready. You have to remember how to speak, how to not trip over your words, how to not laugh like an old man repeatedly.
All X's on those boxes today. We've none of those things. So are you still friends with us or are you not? Because are you here for the realness? Because I have not checked off a single one of those boxes today.
No.
And,
you get it real though. And sometimes you just come on, you're going to come on, you're going to check in with your friends. You know what we've done today? This is today's segment. Today we are going to that brunch with the friends when you're not going to say everything's fine. You know what I mean? You just for me, oh, I'm doing great. Sometimes you just go no, not.
No. And then my favorite thing is on your drive home, you analyze the fact that you just overshared for 2 hours and the mental damage that you could have possibly done to the other people with your tremendous oversharing at what was supposed to be a fun girls' brunch. Well, you ruined it. And you know what's going to happen? I told you this is going to happen. The minute we say oh my God, we're horrible, not camera ready, everything sucks today, people are just going to flock to the YouTube. I got to see this. I gotta
see what happened over there.
Well, you just, you want to see the train wreck because it makes
here's the thing. I originally, as we were warming up, I had my hair down, but it was only half dry because I washed it this morning. So then it just got really heavy. And then I was like, Rachel, should I put it in a ponytail? Is that better? She's like, yeah, maybe. And then just before we started, I got this bun here. We're not sure what's really happening with that. I thought it was oh, it's a stylish bun. There's only some people that can do that and some people that look like a little muffin head. Have you seen that video about cutting your hair short? And then you look like Lord Farquaad.
you gotta love a good Shrek reference first thing on the Friday. I
I
like
feel
that.
like that's me.
You know, I like what you've done, and I
I like what you've done over
I
there.
whenever you see someone show up with their full headphones, you know it's like they're just it's a prop to try to hide something. Listen, this is what it is, guys, okay? We are going to have a great time with you today. It's going to be the girls' brunch that we overshare. And you know what? If you leave the brunch and you still want to be friends, then
It
thank you
was
so
meant to be.
much.
It was meant to be. We love
I'll
each
get
other
you a
through thick and
mimosa.
thin.
I'll buy a round. I'll buy a round for my behavior today. I'll do it. I owe you a round for my behavior.
We do have a good episode today, though. We are going to talk about some seasonal depression, seasonal
Speaking of
affective disorder.
depression,
Speaking of depression,
I can't today. I can't.
we're like,
Speaking
what's
of
the episode? What's on the top of our minds today? Here we go. Let's talk about some seasonal depression.
I looked in the mirror today and I was like, we should talk about seasonal depression.
Oh man, yeah, that's what we're gonna talk about. That's what we're gonna talk
Depression's
about.
not a funny topic, but
No, but you know what? Honestly, laughter, and so I'm someone who laughs at very inappropriate times. Like I'm notorious for it, and I know it's coming. Like I'll feel it start bubbling up, like when I start feeling very uncomfortable with something, and I'm like, no, 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 get back down there. Like it's not the time. But I do want to say that like we're not judging our reactions to things, guys. They're all okay. We feel our feels. Not
that's
here
really
in this
feels.
girls' brunch. We're not going to judge you.
We've had so many mimosas that it wouldn't even be appropriate anyways. So, yes, seasonal depression is a super real thing, and it is a super common thing. And I know that all of these years, it's I guess before the awakening of like people understanding anything about freaking mental health, there's not always been like a set term for it. It's just like people have these behaviors that they notice more in the winter months that they always equate with like something being wrong with them in the like it always goes into the lazy category, right? We categorize it into like, why did I gain weight in the winter? I'm lazy. Why did I stop exercising? Why do I want to sleep all day? Like, why do I not get out and do the things I love and enjoy? It's all because I'm lazy. But actually, hold that thought for a second, because everything may not be you just having self-sabotaging behaviors. There might actually be something chemically going on that is contributing to these things. And the more that we learn about them, I feel, the more we are empowered to be able to not put it in the I'm lazy category and like have it snowball into a lot of self-shame, which it always does. And instead be able to just like respect the fact that it's a real thing, that it doesn't have anything to do with us as a person, and that it is an imbalance that we need to correct, and that there are strategies that we can use to actually like go down that road. Wouldn't that be like a new
A new take on it. I know sometimes it's really difficult to start with even just acknowledging what's going on, and in a way that is not destructive to yourself. So a lot of times when we look at things that involve mental health, or we look at something that we're struggling with, we kind of want to overpower it with pure will, and really understanding when something like that is going on, that like pure willpower is not always the answer, and oftentimes very frustrating and impossible, honestly. And sometimes it's really difficult, and it has been really difficult in the past to talk about some mental health things when there is such stigma around it, and there are so many voices going around that go like, we'll just get up, we'll just, and not really like barricading that with the understanding that there isn't really a just in there, but there is some empowerment in a sense where we can put some things in place that will provide a barrier to that, that will curb some of what's going on and kind of like help you, jumpstart being able to heat off some of your seasonal depression. And it's really important to figure out what those are and put them in place in a way that it doesn't require motivation, because it's not like you can't find it. It's not hiding under the bed. It doesn't require motivation. It doesn't require a tremendous amount of like, I don't want to say like willpower, but like it just becomes automatic.
Yeah, taking out those friction points and
Yeah.
having, like, a plan that is set around taking out the friction points is, like, yeah, we don't need to compound, and this is why, I think this episode is really important when we're looking at setting up a plan. If you do I mean, there's 10 million people in the US that report suffering from seasonal depression, and, like, it's disproportionately more women.
Mm,
I've seen a bunch of studies on, like, why that is, and they think evolutionary wise, like, there's something to do with, like, the reproductive system and, like, seasons, and it's like it's a whole ass thing that needs a lot more research. But disproportionately, women are affected more by seasonal depression. And so, I just think that it's, like, one of those things that you it's definitely going to be you're gonna need tools, right? But again, like, those tools are gonna not you're not gonna want them to be things that you have to put a tremendous amount of effort or thought or planning or motivation into, because, like, we all know, anyone who has suffered with any kind of depression, we know that when you're in the throes of it, like, if it's gonna take more than an ounce of thought or effort, it's just not I'm not here for it.
yeah. And it's just I can understand. I know there is several reasons why women are experiencing this at a higher rate, but like in general, women experience more empathy in the world and are just more feeling people. And with that comes some of those more, like, I don't want to say like undesirable, but no one really likes to feel sad. Definitely no one likes to feel depressed. But it comes along with some of those, and yet we are socialized and accustomed to putting our needs to the back burner when they really, looking at it, like taking that, like, be an alien, right? And you're saying like this group is suffering more from this particular thing, but they're the ones who are expected to always put themselves as a back burner, when really you should be right on the front. If we want to combat this, we need to put ourselves in the front. We need to put some of our needs in the front and not feel guilty for them. And I think those really just go hand in hand when we're talking about ways that we can combat season things like seasonal depression, and the things that we can put in place that make us feel good when we're constantly taught to not seek things that make us feel good.
Oh, that patriarchy, man. It's the gift that keeps on giving, you know what I'm
It's the gift that
saying?
keeps on giving.
Told you it was unfiltered today, guys. So I'm gonna start on that because when we get unfiltered, that's the first place I go. Take it down. Okay, so I did want to discuss a couple of common symptoms when it comes to seasonal depression, because I think that so many of them fall into that. For many people, I'm going to categorize this as me being a lazy piece of shit. When I think that if you can hear some of these symptoms and say, wow, I live in, a colder climate. I absolutely struggle more with these in winter months than I do in summer months. Like, maybe we can just start to, like, look at some of these things and say, hey, maybe this is more than it seems on the surface. Weight gain is a very common symptom of seasonal depression. Increased appetite, which those go sometimes hand in hand. Increased carbohydrate cravings. Now, we have, like, so many studies to show us that, like, um
You are
carbohydrates and
looking for a dopamine hit.
when you are lacking dopamine, it often comes in the form of craving carbohydrates. Like
I just
there's
wanna
so
say,
many
we've had
things.
a running joke about this in my family for a very long time because, like, my mom, if you go to her house when you're feeling sad, she offers you toast.
Every
Every
time.
time it's without a doubt, "What do you need some toast?"
You
That's
don't
what
even
she
have to
does.
say anything. If you don't come in with a smile, she's like, I put it it's in the toaster.
There's a
It'll be up
toast.
in a second. I've got butter.
I've got honey.
We got peanut butter. There's so many
There's
choices for
so
your
many
toast.
choices. It's like a running joke in my house, and, like, some of those things that just work themselves into being, like, a common practice or a common joke, like, there is really science behind them. It's just really funny how they come out, and for me, I know I have this personal thing that when I'm feeling really down, I need noodles. And it's a very specific part of noodles. Like I say it every time. I'm like, you need to pick me up some noodles. And it's like, you doing okay? I need to have noodles. I need to watch the heat. And it's like a whole thing. And I know like after, I had done some more like thinking on it and just the increased craving for carbohydrates, it's just like, oh, you did need some noodles.
In the form dopamine in the form of ramen. It's just you know, it's called comfort food for a reason, guys. Like, that's not like a funny nickname. Like, it's actually comforting. It actually does the thing. Um, Sleeping more than normal, decreased desire to do things you enjoy, and experiencing low levels of energy during the day. Now, let's put all of these things together, or even two or three, right?
Yeah.
Decreased desire to do the things you enjoy. One of those might be exercise. Increased amounts of sleep, sleeping more than normal. That might cut into your exercise time. You might normally be like, a 6 a.m.er, and that feels so awesome and great to you from April through October. And for some reason, let's put that in quotes because it's not for some reason, the other months of the year, it's like an impossible task. Low levels of energy is so incredibly common in winter months for people to go like, I just can't find it. I can't find the energy at the end of my day to fit in exercise. It just seems so impossible to me. All I want to do is just curl up. These aren't symptoms of laziness always. Like, we need to really look at the conditions that are being set and say like, okay, our behaviors are a reflection of conditions. And not only that, but those we can work with those. It's not like a set thing that it's like, well, I guess just eat all of the toast and never exercise for the 4 months of the
Eternity.
year. It doesn't have to be like that. But the first important step in setting appropriate accommodations for yourself is just like recognizing that it's a real thing and not trying to combat it with, motivational posters of bikinis and hanging on your fridge in January. Like, that ain't it.
Yeah. And just acknowledging the combination of those things is really honestly, if you've ever been there, you know it's really difficult. You would like to sleep more, but you're having trouble like falling asleep. Sometimes you're waking up during the night. Then you have already lower energy and you're sleepish. Then you have an increased appetite and some weight gain and like all of those things together. I'm tired during the day. I'm overall just feeling exhausted. I'm not really sleeping that much at night. I need more sleep. All of these things combined just create an incredibly difficult environment for thriving. And essentially, what we want to be doing in our life is thriving. Like that, it is what it is. Like we are often just trying to make it through the day, but like the goal is really to thrive. And that environment is not one in which you can thrive. You're not taking care of your body, and if you're not taking care of your body, you're not feeling good. You're not having as much like any increase in energy. You're having trouble finding energy. Now you can't rest. It's a whole combination of things, and when it comes down to it, like you might need to, and I know mom has done that. My mom has done this in the past. You might need to adjust. Like you might have been an early morning workouter all night and all spring and even all fall, and you just can't get up for it now, you might need to adjust there. You might need to like take a step back and say like, "You know what? In the winter, like I'm not an early morning workout person. That doesn't make me less. That doesn't mean I'm totally giving up any of my workouts. It doesn't mean I don't have movement. That doesn't mean any of those things." And what we really need to let go of is when we change behaviors or when we change things in our lives, that now we all of a sudden identify as that person. I'm a person who can't wake up early in the morning. I'm a person who doesn't have motivation. You are not any of those things. You're in different seasons of your life and need to make adjustments based on what you can and can't do at that time and being realistic with what you can and can't do at that time. There's no shame in that.
Yeah, and I think one of the biggest hindrances to consistency and progress is rigid thinking. The
Yeah.
rigid thinking that, like, I have to work out in the morning, and if I don't, I can't. The rigid thinking of, like, my exercise has to be at this level of intensity or it's not good
Mm,
enough. The rigid thinking of, like, I have this carb allowance per day, no matter how I'm feeling, no matter what the season is. Like those kinds of rigid thinking, they really kill consistency because they don't
yeah.
allow for there's just so many variables at play. This is your freaking life. And
Mm.
building these rigid rules, not taking into account any of the actual things, the conditions that are present in your life, is just a recipe for disaster. Or it's not so much disaster, but it is a lot of stop and starting
It's
because
a lot
it's
of start and stopping, and it's a lot of pressure. What person am I? And I'm going to base all of that on what behavior is important in this moment or what I can do in this moment. And who am I now? And like it really just creates a lot of pressure on all of those. Like, oh, I didn't get a full workout in today. I basically only work out 2 days a week now or something. Like, if we just go into that, this is the person that I am instead of like, looking at the circumstances in an honest way and looking at what you have done during those times. Like, I got in a good amount of movement today, and something that I really want to insert in those times is just the importance of getting in that movement and acknowledging it for what it is. For a lot of people during those winter months and during the times where you're having some seasonal depression, getting a walk in is your movement, and that is great. The majority of people don't stretch enough. It's a very important part of fitness. And and that's something that you can do inside. It's really low intensity. You can just like start doing it before you go to bed. It doesn't require a tremendous amount of like exertion that maybe you just don't have. Like I'm always like, I'm down, I'm looking for that intensity, and sometimes you just can't find it. And it can be really frustrating when you can't find the energy and you can't find the intensity. But what you can find is 15 minutes to stretch. And that's going to be really good for your body. That's going to show your body a lot of care and being good with showing your body care, because that's so important. Like, it's just so underrated what we can do to care for our bodies that isn't necessarily breaking it down.
Yeah, it's I had for years, I have suffered with seasonal depression for as long as I can remember, and I just was trying to plow through it for years and just not acknowledge it and say, like, there has to be the same amount of fitness level, and if it's not, then you are sucking, and summer bodies are built in the winter, and look
Oh
at
God.
you sitting on your couch and not getting to your workouts and eating like trash. But the minute, the year that I decided that that was not working for me or serving me in any way, um, was the year that I honestly started getting more movement in during the winter because I was counting things like going for a walk.
Mm.
as a workout. I wasn't counting it as a workout. I was counting it as that's good enough for the day. I'm checking off the box today on movement because there was nothing else that I could possibly get up for. And rather than saying that I'm going to do nothing, I knew that doing something was going to be better. And that was all I could get myself up for. And I moved probably twice the amount that I had the previous winter, just simply because I counted that as enough for myself. And um, I know that, you know, exercise, I know for me, of course, like exercise is a tremendously helpful tool when it comes to seasonal depression. And there are so many studies out there showing that it is a incredibly underutilized tool that people can, not only does it help in things like seasonal depression and immediate endorphin release and all of these things, it actually, despite your history and your genetics, it actually helps to prevent future depressive episodes. So, like, exercising consistently will help your next season's seasonal depression to be less severe. It's like shown in every study. So, you know, there's a number of things that we can do. Exercise, I think that is a really, really important piece, but I totally get that it's the last thing you want to do sometimes. I also get that sometimes the advice of like getting outside is like, have you been out there? Okay. Like, I live in a place where the air hurts my face. And like the idea of I'm going to need to go outside, I'm going to need to bundle up into all of these layers, I'm going to need to trudge because if I'm walking outside in January, I'm trudging. I'm not
Trudging. There's
walking.
not walking. That's not a hot girl walk, it's a trudge.
I'm freaking
Hot girl
angry.
trudge.
It's a it's an ugly girl trudge, let's be honest. So like I know all these things and it's like, you know what? Maybe like I know that that's the ideal advice, but I'm not freaking out for that right now. So a 20-minute stretch in my house is like not a fail. That's not I didn't get outside. That's not I didn't walk. That's not I didn't go get a full ass high intensity session at a gym in a gym setting. That's not any of that. That's like I moved and
Mhm.
it helped. I felt the release, like gentle movement absolutely counts as exercise. And
And it's
it's
not only that, it's so important. Like looking at mobility being the baseline for the health of your body is so important, and it's so underutilized because like we kind of look at it as like secondary, like if I have time for some mobility. And I do that too. I'm 100% guilty of the thing that I'm talking about, and I just want to like it's not a fail, it's the opposite of a fail. It's working on something that is so important to the health and longevity of your body to live a limitless life, to be able to, when you get around to doing some movement again, you have a full range of motion, therefore you're less likely to get injured. Like all of these things compound to make your body healthier and more effective. It's the last thing from a fail if what you can do is stretch for 20 minutes.
one. I hope you're listening
I
to
know
your
I
own
talk to
self.
myself about this a lot because I like it happens when for me a lot of stress tends to come out as injuries. So like I'll be under a tremendous amount of stress and I'll keep like, well, I'm gonna keep trugging, I'm gonna keep trugging. And then all of a sudden like I go to pick something up and I'm like, did I just pull a muscle? Or like I'm having a lot of back pain, or it's just like pain after pain after pain.
That's
And
cortisol levels, guys. We're going to have a
yeah,
whole entire episode coming on that,
we
but
have a
that is a
whole
real
entire
thing.
episode.
And that is cortisol levels. And that is scientifically proven that you are more likely to get injured when you have higher cortisol due to stress.
Yeah.
Sorry, keep going.
No, it's really so important. And even for those of us who understand it and say, like, okay, well, lower your stress levels. And I'm the type of person, um, And just like insight into me, I'm the type of person who's just like, well, lower your stress then. And I get all like, well, just lower it. I don't say, like, okay, what you might need is to take some time off of your workout at the end to do something like go for a walk. Like, I need to sub that in because I need to lower the stress level. And you need to do something that isn't causing more stress. Like, you need to, put meditation in place. You need to do some of the stretches. And I find myself trying to do some of the stretches, but I'm working on my phone in between. And I'm like, that's not lowering your stress. You're not addressing the problem here. And it's just, we all have the things that we are, constantly struggling on. But I think one of the most important ones, and this is why we're at Girl Brunch today, is just like being able to acknowledge some of them, say some of them out loud in a way of like, this is a problem. Like it's a problem if you are maintaining a high level of stress all the time and your body is having to scream at you that you can't maintain that level. Like you got to bring it down. And what are the ways that we can bring it down? And a lot of the ways that we can, these are just we can sub these in different ways, right? Like we can sub in for some of the seasonal depression things, some of the ways that you can combat that are also some of the ways you can bring anxiety down. Like what's really important is that you find what works for you and you're not stuck to a story that you tell yourself repeatedly. Well, I'm just a really stressed person, or I'm just this is just what I do in the winter. Like, could we put some things in place where it could be a better winter for you,
Yeah,
where
and
it could
I'm really glad you said the anxiety piece because when people hear seasonal depression and they hear some of the symptoms that sound very typical for
Mhm.
depression, a lot of people that their depression manifests in anxiety,
Yeah.
they don't hear themselves in that. And I also want to speak to you because seasonal depression can come out as not enough, like huge disruptions in your sleep patterns,
Yeah.
not being able to sleep, massive amounts of anxiety, panic attacks. Those are, even though they don't sound typically like depression, they are like going, like being on 125% all day and like doing stress like cleaning and all
Yeah.
of these type of things. That's anxiety, and that absolutely is a symptom of seasonal depression. It's just the way you manifest. So I just want to suggest that people look at um, exercise first, even though it can sometimes be the one of the most difficult things. But if you look at it in the frame of any type of movement with any type of intensity level and counting it all. And
Mm.
it doesn't have to be outside, and it doesn't have to be high intensity, and it doesn't have to involve weights, and it doesn't have to be yoga if that's not what you feel like for the day. And
Mhm.
it all releasing that rigid thinking and just saying like, I know what I need here. Exercise is proven. I know what I need. I gotta like carve out a little time and I'm just gonna do 10 minutes today because that's all I have. Then that is going to be 100% worth it in the
I
end.
like to I just like to like frame it exactly how it is though. Like it is your care. It's your self-care for the day. It might be your therapy. I know a lot of people have been like, "Well, stop using the gym as therapy." If that's what feels good for you, yeah, 100%. Coming from a therapist, that is 100% a coping skill that is very effective for a lot of people and they feel guilty putting that in place where you don't feel guilty putting some of the other things in place where it's just like, oh, some people require some medication during that time. I require some this. Like put it in place exactly how it is and how it serves you in your body. Like you need some form of self-care daily to combat depressive episodes. You need some form of self-care daily to combat anxious episodes. Like you need to put these things in place as a form of self care. And if it doesn't feel good, know that doesn't mean it's a failure. That type of movement doesn't feel good for me today, so it's not providing me with self-care. So I'm going to put something else in instead, and that might look like stretching. That feels good for me, so that is going to be my self-care.
And it's so cool because it can be used both as preventative and reactive. So it's like you can use it in the moment to help you feel better. Like right now, I need something this very minute. And you can use it to prevent future episodes where it's like, this is just the gift that keeps on giving. And I just, have you ever tried? I was just thinking of other things, but I want to definitely end on medication because I think like hard stop sometimes like sometimes we need to look at getting some medication and that not being some sort of a failure. I've heard
No.
a therapist describe, the going to all of the other things, the meditative apps, the exercise, the light therapy, all of these things, and saying like, still am not feeling great and I'm still really struggling, and saying like, you know what? We don't question why a diabetic can't control their own insulin levels with all kinds of other therapies that like they can use. Like, we're not going to question if your brain needs help producing more serotonin. We're not going to question that and say, well, don't you think you could just exercise more? We don't ask
Mm.
that to a diabetic, and we wouldn't ask that to someone who had an imbalance in serotonin. So like, if you this is only going to help you, and if you are on medication or you've chosen that route or you're thinking about choosing that route, exercise is just another thing
It's
to
another
help.
tool in your
It's a
toolbox.
tool, absolutely. But sometimes the tools that you have available are just not gonna be enough, and there is not a one thing wrong with that. Not a one thing.
Nope. Nope. And looking at them as just that. They are a bunch of tools in your toolbox that you can call on when you need them, and looking at them all encompassing in that way. There's not like one that's necessarily more important than the others. They're all tools, and you decide which one fits for you right now in this moment. And that doesn't mean you are whatever this type of person that we put into all of these categories, but you do need several tools in your toolbox, and just because you have one doesn't mean don't need to use another.
The more tools, the better.
Mhm.
You're gonna build a better house. We all are, if you're struggling right now, if you're in a climate that is really tough, if you know that you struggle with this, or maybe you're just coming around to the fact that this could be a thing. Number 1, I would suggest getting some movement in today. Number 2, I would suggest absolutely talking about it, whether that be at a girl's brunch with mimosas or with a trusted mental health professional, and, looking at your options, because this is not something that you have to just trudge through. There are absolutely tools and resources available to help you to feel better, and that is just what we all want. We just all want to optimize the time that we have here, and having several months of the year be so miserable, that's not optimizing. And if we can use these tools to sort of help you, or if this episode has been helpful for you at all, let us know. Get in the group, tell us about what has helped you in the past, and we love you. Be well.